We're here for another No Filter. Why are you laughing? We're here for another session of No Filters Media. I saw that. Somebody used to do that on TV, and I always kind of wanted to do that. Oh, I know. It was somebody making fun of that lady who does all the home ec stuff. Gloria Charles. No.
Julia
Charles. Okay, yeah. They did that on TV. They always said, hello. But anyway, hello. No Filters Media here again today. I'm Sly James, co-founder of Wickham James Strategies and Solutions, here with Joni Wickham, my good friend. We are the authors of several books. We do a lot of interesting things in terms of public policy. One thing that we're very engaged in right now is working with chiefs of staff from around the country at Harvard, all as a result of Joni's contacts and work with some chiefs of staffs over the years, and we get some good things done on municipal innovation. But we're here today to talk to you about yet another off-topic topic. And Joni?
Hey everybody, Joni Wickham, co-founder of Wickham James Strategies and Solutions and author of the best-selling book, The Thin Line Between Cupcake and Bitch. And we are here today talking on this podcast episode about what we wish the average person understood about how government works. And this is government at every level, local, state, and federal. And Sly and I were saying earlier that sometimes it's befuddling how sometimes people don't realize the difference in federal, state, and local government. And often there's a huge difference. When we were in the mayor's office, when Sly first took over, within the first 2 or 3 days, we were getting not just one, but like several phone calls from irate constituents wanting to know why Sly James had not brought the troops home from Afghanistan yet.
Yeah, well, that was probably followed by the same guy who wanted me to do something with the post office. I said, the post office is federal. Yeah, but it's in your city, so you ought to do. Okay, fine, you're out to lunch. As a general rule, I'm going to make this statement, see if Joni agrees with it. The further you get away from local government, the further you get away from services and the closer you get to policy. I'm trying to think. The services that we all rely on day to day are at the local level. Policies are set at the state level about certain things. They deliver some services, not nearly what local does. Federal government is more policy and delivering even fewer services than the state or the local government. That's one breakdown right there. But then you've got all these lines. What's federal, what's state, what's local? And I think people don't understand the differences between local, state. I'll put it to you like this. People don't even understand the difference between city and county, let alone local and state.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think what you said is how it should be. I think federal and state government are way more focused on politics than policy. They probably should be focused on policy.
And I don't necessarily think that our two statements are in any way mutually exclusive. I think that they might be because of that. I look at local government as public service. I look at state government as politics and federal government as politics with a capital P. Although they both are capital P, and maybe both should be capital P'd on, but that's just me. But the local government is tasked with delivering services to people, and not even the people who receive those services understand all the services that they get, the complexity or cost of getting those services, or how that comes about. So I happen to love local government. I happen to have a healthy disdain and cynicism about state government because I live in the state of Missouri, which is also known as the state of misery, constant
And not
misery.
just because of the weather.
Not just because of the weather, it's because of the political winds that blow are so often filled with dog crap. And then the federal government is like politics with comedy. And it's, I was going to say dark comedy, but that's racially offensive to me. It's like white comedy. Okay. Well, I don't want every time that something is dark or black to
Yeah.
be looked at as a negative, because it shouldn't be. But
I love dark chocolate.
well, that's why you hooked up with me, baby. So, yeah, I'm sweet and I'm dark.
I knew that was coming.
Yes, but all I need is a little cherry on my head, a little whipped cream. Ooh, wee.
Oh, Lord. Okay. What do you wish people knew about government?
Well, here's one thing I wish people knew and had a real understanding of. It costs money.
Yeah.
You can't get this stuff done without money. And I know people don't like to pay taxes, but that's the cost of living with other people. You don't want to pay taxes? I guess you could move to the wild, wild west, get yourself a little 40 acres out there, and raise some cattle and all that. And even then, you got to have money.
Yeah. You should check out the Twitter feed of your friend, former Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Patuto.
Ah, yes.
They recently had a terrible bridge collapse.
Yes.
And
While Biden was there, as a matter of fact.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I don't think anyone was seriously injured.
There were no injuries.
Yeah, but he had a really interesting conversation on Twitter about the fact that in Pittsburgh, and this is very similar to Kansas City, in Pittsburgh, a lot of their infrastructure was built, I think he was saying, when the population was like 600,000 or 700,000.
Yeah.
It's a fraction of that now. So that impacts your the amount of people that you have to pay into to pay taxes,
right,
to pay for that infrastructure.
Right.
And so he had this really interesting discussion with folks on Twitter about how you don't want your bridge to collapse. You got to pay for it.
Yeah. People need to look at city infrastructure in particular in the same way that they look at their house, okay? You buy a house, you don't cut the grass, you don't pick up the leaves, you don't do anything to your plumbing. If your plumbing clogs, you just let it go. Your roof gets a hole in it. Your fence starts falling down. Now, you got two choices. You can either leave it that way or you can repair it. Same way with the city, except it's a whole bunch of houses and everything in between, because if you own a house, you don't have to take care of the street in front of you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to take care of the fire hydrant down at the corner that's going to help other people besides you. You sure don't have to do anything about electricity or telecommunications or transportation or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff costs money. And just like citizens now are finding that the prices of things are going up beyond what they normally do, same impact is felt by government. So it costs money. That's one thing I wish people would understand. Now, what they also need to understand is that, yes, money should be used wisely, and that's the job of the people that you elect. So if you want your money used wisely, don't be bozos and elect people who won't. But that's just one part of city government. I think sometimes people expect government, whatever level of government, to solve every problem.
Yeah.
And it can't.
Right.
It can't. Well, it could if you wanted to pay for it, but nobody has that kind of money, and it's not the right role of government. The primary role of local government is service delivery and lifestyle. The primary role of state government is economic and making sure the businesses flow and that the mix of businesses and all of that, and keeping taxes reasonable. I ain't going to say low, because low isn't always good. Reasonable is more sense. And the primary role of federal government is not primary. One of its major obligations is international and defense and all the things that you have to do on a very broad scale, where economies of scale really, really matter. So if you look at the local government level, where you want your trash picked up, you want the trees trimmed, the roads to work, just recognize that it costs money and that there's a process for doing those things. And then you can't sit around and bitch about it. There are situations where you can actually go and impact it, call city council meetings or whatever other meetings you want to go to, and find out the truth and the facts and engage. But to sit from afar and not understand the real intricacies of an issue and be cave people, which is basically citizens against virtually everything, if you want to do that, then you're not going to get the type of government that you need, but you will get the type of government you deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish more people government certainly is not always able to solve their problems, but government also has a responsibility to the whole and not individual interest groups. They shouldn't feel like they have a obligation to individual interest groups or issues. And I have seen so many times advocacy groups want to completely swing public policy one way very quickly without really giving thought to the practical implications, some of them negative sometimes, of what that might mean.
Well, it's part of our modern day mentality that problems ought to be alleviated today and resolved. I'll just say this. Government is like a battleship. It takes a long time to turn a battleship in from one direction to another. You want to be in a canoe? You can turn the canoe pretty quick, but there's only room for a couple of people in the canoe.
Yeah.
And you ain't going very far. Government has to go the long haul, has to provide for all the people in the city. There's never going to be 100% coverage, but you can't limit yourself to doing things that only benefit a minority of people. That's one problem with it. The problem I've got with government is politics. Politics gets in the way of government. And by that I mean when you start attaching a blue or a red or an R and a D to what you're doing, then all of a sudden you create an immediately hostile environment for the discussion, because Democrats and Republicans right now seem to do nothing more than argue amongst themselves, not so much on the state, on the local level, because nobody really pays much attention to your party affiliation on the local level. But on the state level, on the federal level, it's all about politics. And what happens because you've got these built-in arguments between the D's and the R? Nothing gets done. The people's needs aren't met. My classic example is healthcare, where everybody thinks and knows that it's better for people to have healthcare, but because one party advocated for it against the other party, it doesn't get done the right way because the other party doesn't want it done. They want it either to be their idea or nobody's. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't help the people we're supposed to be serving in government. If we would focus on people and their problems and solving their problems, a lot more would get done. But what we do is we focus on politics and making sure that we've taken a pure political stance.
Yeah. So to go back to our original point, what we wish people understood about how government functions, is the average person really to blame? I'm putting blame in air quotes. Really to blame for not understanding how taxes work, what taxes pay for, how government functions, the impact of elections, et cetera, when we don't necessarily teach civics in school. I was asking my third grader the other day something about social studies, and she's like, we're not going to do social studies again until April. Like, okay, we're not even teaching kids civics on a consistent basis. They get it for something like maybe 8 to 10 weeks a year.
No.
And people care more about, I don't even know if American Idol's still on. I don't watch TV. But like people,
it's coming back on, and it'll be a very good show. You should watch it. Katy Perry is on it. I will watch anything that Katy Perry is on.
Okay, well, maybe we get her to do Civics 101. I don't know. But like, my point is people care more.
Could I be her TA?
People care more about that stuff than they do understanding the world around them.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think there's room for both, but but no, we're not teaching civics. But I'm not willing to give people a free pass either. When I went to grade school, it was a Catholic school, and they taught religion. When I sent my kids to a public school, they did not. That did not alleviate my kids from knowing the difference between right and wrong. And at some point in time, even if you're not taught and you have a brain and you know how to read and you are a living, breathing, sentient person in this country, you can learn whatever you want to learn. I mean, if it's an issue of taxes, you can figure out the taxes. Hell, they write about it all the time. There's all sorts of stuff in papers and television and this and that about a taxes being passed. You can delve into it as much as you want to, but the problem is that most people would rather bitch about it than learn about it. But we have failed by not educating our kids from moment one about their role in society, how they should interact with government, what the different levels of government are. If you ask, I'd be willing to bet you if you get 100 high school students from good high schools, and I put good in quotation marks, and lined them up and said, how is a bill passed in Congress?
No clue.
I bet you, I'd be willing to bet you if you took 100 students and lined them up and said, name me the president, vice president, speaker of the House, and the minority leader in federal government, that you couldn't get you could get very few people who could name all four.
Yeah.
And that's not just high school. If we could walk down on the plaza and ask the first 100 people, they probably wouldn't be able to get it. When you don't care enough to actually even know who's running your government.
Yeah.
I watched the show on the other day because I do watch TV, and it was, I know what it is. It's America Asks or America Says or whatever. It's kind of a weird little show, but it takes a statement and it's like, if I could have dinner with any current or past president, I would want to have dinner with, and then it gives you a bunch of blanks starting with the letter.
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah. I was absolutely astounded how people didn't know who the W was or the J was, and it's like, well, it's a past president, so that means there's a limited number, and it's W. Do you think maybe it's Washington?
God.
Or maybe it could be Governor Wilson, or President Wilson. Somebody named it wasn't a president. It was like a mayor of a city, and they didn't understand why that was wrong. And
because it wasn't a president.
It wasn't a president. They named a mayor of some city. Somebody named somebody who was on the Supreme Court. And I was just absolutely astounded by how you didn't know your president.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think very few people can name 10.
Well, yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's truly, truly sad. Yeah. And don't ask for in order. I sure as hell wouldn't be able to name them in order, but I can name 10 pretty easily. But the bottom line is that why a lot of times what people don't know about government is because they've never bothered to ask the questions or read anything about it. They are situational. They turn to government and learn a little bit during election times. But what they generally learn is from the internet or TV. I don't think people actually read a policy position. I doubt that people look at whether or not a senator that they're voting for has voted yes or no on issues that they're concerned with, even though the information is out there. But on the local level, and I love the local level, like I said, there's really no reason not to be engaged. There's really not, because it has an immediate, everyday impact on your life, because the services that are being provided and the people who provide them are people you should know. You see them in the grocery store and the restaurants. You don't see your state senator or your federal representative any place. They tend to be federalized and want to hang out with the other federalized people. But the basic thing that we should all know is the local level of government is who we interact with. That is our first contact with government. State government, not so much, unless you're in need of something, Medicaid or something like that, which is very difficult to get, or they're calling you saying that you owe more taxes than you thought you did. When did we really have much contact with state government?
You mean as individuals or when?
As individuals.
Oh, yeah. As individuals, yeah.
All right. So knowing that we don't have much contact individually, what role do they play governmentally across the board?
They should be taking care of more infrastructure than they're able to do.
That requires taxes. That is a Republican anathema, and it simply doesn't happen because nobody wants to vote for it.
Yeah.
Well, there are people who want to vote for it, but the people who put it on the ballot won't support it and won't fight for it, so it doesn't get much play.
Yeah.
Although I will give Governor Parson credit for what he did.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so to sum up this episode, educate yourself.
Even more importantly, understand why it's important to educate yourself. One thing that we did here when we were in government, we heard a whole lot of people bitching about stuff, constantly complaining about this or about that, had no idea of what they were really talking about, but they had complaints. And you had to educate them and take it back and say, you need to understand this basic fact before you get to the point that you're at. So if you want, here's my basic rule of thumb. Before you start complaining about something, do enough research to know whether or not your complaint makes any damn sense.
Yeah, that's the truth. Or if you're complaining about the right thing, I mean, you might really have a gripe, but you're not complaining about the right thing or to the right person who can do something about it.
Or to the right person or to the right level of government.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't do any good to come to local government and talk about abortion.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. That's not something we deal with. We deal with, are the streets going to get paved? Is trash going to get picked up? Are we going to get a streetcar running? What are we doing for transportation? How's the economy? What are we doing to make businesses stay, families happier, do whatever we can? We don't have a damn thing to do with abortion. And there were people who says, well, what's your position on abortion? I say, well, I believe in choice. Well, I can't vote for you. That's it, and you understand that has absolutely nothing to do with local government. Nothing at all. Well, I can't vote for you. All right, well, vote for the guy who won't do a damn thing, but believes like you do because it doesn't make any sense. You know, silly stuff like that. Stop. Here's one other thing I'll ask people to do. Do not romanticize the people that you want to elect to government, and do not underestimate the power you have to elect good people to government. Don't find some bozo whose only good thing as far as you concerned are his position on abortion or his position on taxes. And I say his because we're still doing that at a ridiculously disproportionate rate, or their position on a single issue. Single issue politics will kill you. They may agree with you on one thing and be 100% against you on 99 others.
Or inept on everything else.
Or inept. Yeah. The only thing that they know is that one issue. They're a single issue politician. That's all they know about. That's all they care about. And when they get into another situation, they have no clue.
Yeah.
And that no clue can get you hurt. So we have to be willing to put people in government recognizing that we're not going to agree with them on 100% of the things. The idea is to find people with integrity who will try to do the right thing, even if it cuts against what they personally believe. If it's the right thing for the majority of the people, but it bothers me personally, my obligation is to the people I serve, not to me.
Yeah, that's servant leadership.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
All right. And I do want to say, too, that the other thing that I think people don't understand about government is the people who you look at as running government aren't really the people who actually run government. The people who run government are the people who do the work on a day-to-day basis that nobody ever knows about. They're underpaid, they're under-recognized, they're under-thanked, and those are the staff people who do the day-to-day stuff to keep working things going. Mayors, council people, presidents, senators, governors, come and go. The people who pull the levers to make things happen in cities and states and federal levels are there for decades.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.